Prayer for Walton Bay, a novel based in the area of Kingston, Ontario in the late 1800s. This story was inspired from the desire to see Canada return to its simple roots after seeing such division during the pandemic in recent years. Available now on Amazon, this book will help fund our efforts here at Momentum Canada, since we are not government funded. Rather than just ask for money, I wanted to give you something wholesome for you to enjoy as well. So place your order today and enjoy a great story for such a time as this. All right, how's it going, everybody? Brandon McCaskill here with Momentum Canada. Thanks for joining me today. If you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. That really helps me out as well. The share button, all that stuff. Ring the notification bell so that you're notified when I go live or do a new upload. Today is kind of a surprise live stream. I usually don't go live on Tuesday afternoons. It's pretty rare for me, but I felt it was appropriate because I have Mr. Mike Mole with me. He is a regular active subscriber here on the channel. He's become a good friend in a sense. He sends me a lot of good information and some good insight into some of the problems that we're facing here in Canada and abroad. So I ended up interviewing Mike 3 weeks ago now. He gave me a download of his situation regarding his termination at work for the city of Brampton. So that video is available on Rumble. It's the thumbnail on it is called Meet Mike. So you can watch that video. But to just give you a quick recap to bring this up to speed, he was terminated for, and I'll get him to correct me if I'm wrong, because he's sitting here in the waiting room waiting for me to bring him in. But he was terminated for refusing to, maybe I have the wording wrong, but refusing to abide by their alternative solutions to not taking the jab for his employment. And so I think they give him the option of doing a test kit to show up to work. But Mike was, I think he said, one of two people that still refused to do that, because that's still an infringement on their privacy in regards to their medical information. So I'm going to bring Mike in. Again, he can correct me if I'm wrong on that assessment, but we're going to hear part 2 of this story, his status of where he's at right now, because I think there's been some development. So let's bring in Mike. Mike, how you doing?
I'm excellent. How are you, Brandon?
I'm doing well, sir. So how did I do?
Well, you're barking up the right tree, so you're good. But you're a busy guy, and
I think I got the wording wrong.
Well, I mean, like, they are playing so many word games. It's all semantics, right?
That's the thing.
Who can keep it straight? What actually happened was initially the city of Brampton told all of the unionized employees, actually probably non-unionized as well, but of course that's a different club. They told them that they needed to know their vaccination status. And out of approximately 1,000 bus operators, 296 of us told them we're not that. So they watered it down, and they then said, well, if you won't disclose your vax status, then you'll need to do a test once a week,
right?
And you'll be required to electronically upload your test result into our city app.
Right.
That in and of itself was bad enough, but here comes the worst part. By so doing, we were informed in writing you would also be consenting to allowing the employer, the city of Brampton, to attach who knows what else from your employee file to be sent into what they were claiming was a safe and secure spot where no one would ever, and so on and so forth. So it was all just a huge infringement on privacy.
Right.
And if you look at the legislation, there's no way on earth they could possibly be thinking that it was legal. But
yeah, I think a lot of these employers thought they were doing the right thing by like giving you an alternative, right? You can get tested instead of telling us your information, but it's still an infringement.
Unfortunately, for those who might not realize it at this point, uh, the whole COVID thing was a smokescreen,
Hmm.
and it was the actual personal information. I would suggest, now that we're seeing them roll in to the best of their ability, digital ID,
Mm-hmm.
central bank digital currency, 15-minute cities, and if I'm out in left field for anybody, just think back a month or so when Prime Minister, what's his name, met with the premiers and said, if you're going to have a piece of this huge health uh, transfer payment pie, then what you'll need to do is you'll need to digitize all the health records of the peoples in your province and
Mm-hmm.
forward that to the federal government, which, as we all know, the federal government is not involved in health.
Hmm.
It's a provincial matter.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
I'd suggest that the COVID was a bit of a mixture, a social conditioning exercise, but also opening the lid on the Pandora's box for getting as much information. And here comes the exclamation mark. It was recently found out that the federal government is working diligently on what's referred to as a personal information bank,
Hmm.
PIB. And anyone can look that up and see what they find. They are wanting to have as much information as they can acquire, and they like best to do it with consent.
Yeah,
So
right. That's crazy business. Well, Mr. Terry French is in the comments. He's asking, who is this fellow? Who are you, Mike?
I'm the 60-year resident of the city of Brampton who drove the bus for 21 years and was terminated from his employment because of non-compliance.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I,
so
sorry,
nope.
I like to refer to myself as the canary in the coal mine.
Yeah. So yeah, it's unfortunate that you have to be though.
No, no, you know what? I consider it a blessing.
Good for you.
Other people have said similar things to what you've said.
Yeah.
And yes, financially and mentally, psychologically, it was a bit of a hit. But I'm always quick to inform those people that I have no plans to bring my pension with me to the great
Mm,
hereafter.
that's a good point. Can't take it with you. ABCDE says, hello. Hello, ABCDE. Great to have you. Um, so why don't we talk about your status? What's the update with your situation?
The update is, and again, just so you know, I went into this thinking I could not lose,
Hmm.
and I didn't. So, Terry French, please uh, don't feel sorry for me. Like I said, I consider it a blessing that someone gave me the opportunity to stand on principle and do what's right.
I like that.
Um, so, I had hoped at the conclusion of the mediation meeting in my duty of fair representation complaint against my union, which was held just last Thursday, that I would have actually won the right to return to work, possibly under better conditions than what the union had won for me
Mm,
in my arbitration hearing.
right.
However, that was not the case. I retained a very good legal counsel, and I have the receipt to prove it,
Hmm.
because I wanted to go through this. If I was going to be the canary in the coal mine, I wanted my feathers to look good. And they did. I was well represented, I can guarantee you. However, the new union president you may recall, I think I mentioned previously on the Rumble interview that the previous union president, who had said at one point, along with Mayor Patrick Brown, that no City of Brampton employees or City of Brampton bus operators were terminated because of mandates, which makes me chopped liver.
Mm-hmm.
But the new union president, probably halfway through the mediation meeting, to my shock and dismay, said, well, no City of Brampton bus operators lost their jobs because of mandates. And I thought, okay, Bruce Springsteen, was it? No, it was The Who.
Yeah.
Say hello to the new boss, same as the old boss.
Yeah. It's funny how they can squirm away from that, eh? Because he's saying that because he gave you the option to do the other, right? But that's still they're mandating.
Which
That's what a mandate means.
would what actually happened, because I've been looking into it, needless to say, since the beginning. And Kieran Moore, the chief medical officer of health in Ontario,
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, or what, in one of his daily or weekly interviews that he was giving in February of 2022, on the 17th of February, he stated explicitly, to everyone's shock, there were never any mandates in Ontario. The only place that had mandates were long-term care homes. Okay. And that just left this huge question mark on
Yeah.
everyone's mind. And technically, because he said that, you know what? When my union president says no one lost their job because of mandates, based on what Kieran Moore said, he might be correct. But here's the rub. Okay. The
Mm-hmm.
legislation, the labor legislation in this province is extremely clear. No employer may impose new conditions of employment on
Mm.
anyone in a collective agreement.
Hmm.
They can't reopen it.
Mm.
They are not allowed to do that. And if the union wants to enter negotiations with that employer throughout the period that's covered in the collective agreement, then obviously there has to be a vote or something like that.
Right.
So, had there in fact been a legal reason, such as a mandate, to impose new conditions of employment, then it would be a different kettle of fish.
Right.
However, as Kieran Moore and others have said, there weren't mandates. Well, if they weren't mandates, then in the case of Brampton, where it was a vaccination administrative directive, well, you
Hmm.
can't just unilaterally impose that on your employees. If you
Mm.
do, then the Ontario Labor Board should find that you're doing something illegal.
Hmm.
So I'm not sure at this point whether I'm going to pursue the matter any further. A friend of mine who protests with me regularly, who was suspended by the Toronto Fire Department, emailed me something just about an hour ago, talking about a $126 million lawsuit that some employees are filing against their city municipalities,
Right.
wherever they might be. And I haven't had a chance to look at it yet. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess you just got to ask yourself, is it worth the continued pursuit, right? What would be the
Well,
upside? Just to continue to fight for freedom or
it's not about me.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
If it were just about me, I'd have probably done what a lot of the others did,
Hmm.
and just, you know,
Right.
I wouldn't have lost my job.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's unfortunate, but
No, don't say that.
that's
Take it back.
you're a blessed man. Well, we'll
Thank
put it
you.
this way: you're a blessed man for seeing it this way, and that's what
Well,
Terry said in the comments there. He says you're taking a positive out of a negative, and that's encouraging. And I think that's what we need, eh? We need people with more positive attitudes and You're a good
I can't
example.
remember whether I mentioned it previously or not, but the person I actually serve, actually the deity that I serve, um, what he does is turn terrible things into great things. And for myself personally, I
Yeah.
mean, what could be worse than laying down your life, unless of course you saved all of humanity who
Yeah.
who was prepared to accept your grace.
Right. There you go.
So that's I certainly don't have a Christ complex, okay? But in a small way, I'm trying to pay it forward and so on and so forth.
Good man. Well, what do you, in your opinion, what's on the agenda for Canada? What do we need to do to save this great country? What are some steps?
Well, I think I mentioned to you that there's an initiative that's taking place this Saturday, and in the province of Ontario, there are going to be lawyers and freedom fighters
Hmm.
dropping off prosecution papers against the Governor General
Right.
for yeah, for in order to prosecute her for being a part of actions that went against the Constitution.
Right.
Her and others as well.
Hmm.
So there are a lot of different fronts where the actions are taking place. Uh, we had some impromptu visitors here at our home yesterday. Uh, a daughter-in-law, my youngest son, and our two young grandchildren. And the daughter-in-law works at the largest hospital. And I am answering your question. She works at the largest hospital in southwestern Ontario,
Hmm.
and and I think she bought the narrative for the most
Hmm.
part about the jabs.
Hmm.
Working in the hospital is absolutely brutal,
Hmm.
as everyone has heard. Now, she obviously knows that my DFR was, in some senses, a failure, not in all, but in some senses, a failure. And I asked her, well, what's going on in the hospitals these days? Because believe me, line, okay. And she said, yeah, it's not good.
Hmm.
And I asked her, well, are you aware that on Thursday, which was the same day as my mediation meeting, Dr. Kieran Moore came out with another announcement
Hmm.
and stated loud and clear that nobody lost their jobs because of mandates. And she looked very sheepish and she said, yes, there's been a lot of chatter and a lot of posting of comments, not only with those who were terminated, who still communicate with their former co-workers, but she said between the people who complied as well.
Right.
And I asked her, well, are you aware that all this COVID business was just a hoax? And whereas 6 months ago, she would have been furious with me,
Hmm.
she said, yeah, I'm starting to see that.
Right.
Okay. And I said, well, what are you going to do with that information? And she said, I just know I did what I had to at the
Hmm.
time.
Right.
And I wanted to ask her, well, how about the people who didn't comply? Were
Hmm.
they doing what they had to at the time?
Good question.
And I think, to respond to your question, I know that the narrative is definitely changing. This past Sunday, when we were out protesting, we haven't seen police
Hmm.
in about 2 or 3 months. And this past Sunday, they were all around us.
Hmm.
And I'm very happy to say they were smiling and giving us a thumbs up.
That's good.
Okay. Well, that's here in Brampton. I don't know what it's like other places.
Right.
Um, and one of them actually pulled over when I was walking with my inverted Dutch flag at one point because of the farmers' protests that took place in The Hague. Um, on Saturday.
Hmm.
And he put his window down and he said, "There's no problem with what you're doing here." But he said, "I wouldn't want to have to come back if one of you got hit." And I read between the lines, and seeing the large police presence, I think they might have picked up on some chatter on social media about maybe somebody saying it's time to take out a few of these people or something like that.
Hmm.
And the police were sticking close to us and actually had our back.
Hmm.
So, what needs to happen in this it's happening here and there and so
Right.
on. The clock is ticking. It's ticking. I've mentioned that in regards to the city of Brampton and Brampton Transit, I was the canary in the coal mine.
Hmm.
And another guy who I was protesting with on Sunday, after we packed up in Brampton and moved down to Huron, Ontario, and Burnhamthorpe in Mississauga, he was informing the public with his megaphone that if they didn't do something soon, they'd fully understand the predicament of the frog in the pot of boiling water.
Hmm.
And that's actually what we're starting to see with, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, the public information or the personal information bank, the way they're pushing out the 15-minute city idea. I got called a conspiracy theorist in a virtual meeting with a consultant
Hmm.
from the city of Brampton talking about secondary plans in my area of Brampton, because they were trying to inform all of us in the meeting
Yeah.
how wonderful these 15-minute cities were going to be. So
Yeah.
if we don't, just to carry on with the animal analogy to the last part, we've got the canary in the coal mine, we've got the frog in the pan of boiling water. And if people don't actually get up off their couches and away from their keyboards, pretty soon they're going to themselves like the lemmings going over the edge of the cliff.
Hmm. Good analogy. Yep. Here, I want to read this from Terry French. He says, I don't know if I'd agree that COVID was a hoax. It's a real virus, but the severity of it was blown way out of proportion. I think that's what we're saying. Like the
Yeah.
exaggeration of it was the hoax, the fear mongering. And then I wanted to touch with Chris up here. He says, unions won't bite the hand that feeds them. That's a major problem in Canada. You agree with that, Mike?
Well, see, the difficulty is in this problem, you can't opt out of a union. If you
Mm.
work in the public sector, within, whichever part of it you're employed, you have
Mm-hmm.
no option. In the States, for example, you don't have to be a member of the union. You will still have to pay union dues so that they represent you in the collective bargaining process.
Right.
But you have a choice.
Hmm.
Um, so here, part of the problem is, yeah, if you want to, for example, in the city of Brampton, to be a bus operator, like it or not, you're part of the union.
Hmm.
So they've got you 100%. And then, yeah,
Hmm.
they're obviously what happened to me based on the legislation is illegal.
Hmm.
Okay. But try to pin them down to that,
Right.
it's virtually impossible.
Mm-hmm. Sage Tomcat says all unions are now corrupt and don't really do what they were intended.
The golden age of unions is definitely a thing of the past. They served a useful purpose at a time, but yes, I'd agree with what Sage Tomcat was saying there. They haven't outlived their usefulness, but they've become so corrupted. We could see that in the province of Ontario prior to Christmas, when Doug Ford said he was going to use the notwithstanding clause
Mm-hmm.
against the people from the education sector, and then they all joined together and did what they did, and so on and so forth.
Hmm.
It's yeah, it's awful.
Hmm. All right. Vikram says Pastor Arthur Pawlowski is running for Premier of Canada. Oh, that's pretty good
Of
news.
Alberta.
I didn't hear that. That's awesome. Amazing speech given at a press conference. Check Ernie Racing News Channel. They produce these bioweapons in their underground labs and put them on humanity. 9/11 saved the problem.
Yeah.
I'm not anti-vax. I'm anti-experimental drug being pushed on one that wasn't. Unions failed their members. Big labor is owned by crooked leftist politicians like Unifor. Unions are useless. They don't really protect the employees. Exactly. Well, right on. Well, thank you, Mike. Thanks for the update. And thanks for your, like I said, your positive attitude, because that's what's needed. People need hope. And I think there's hope in how we react to things, right?
Absolutely. That's why I'm here with you.
Yeah. I'm not the one that screams and shouts. I got the low, calm voice. That's what people tell me. Remain calm. We'll get through this somehow.
Absolutely. Well, it's a blessing what you're doing. That's why I'm glad to be able to inform through your platform. Thank you kindly.
Yeah, you're welcome here anytime, man. Thanks for your time. We'll jump off. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Mike. Take care.
Are you feeling run down and constantly getting sick? Are you struggling to bounce back post-pandemic as quickly as you used to? If so, you may be experiencing a depleted immune system. Fortunately, there is a solution. It's called Ancient Immunizone with Adaptogen from the JVJ DNA company. JVJDNA.com's founder has developed a new immune-boosting supplement specifically designed to support and strengthen your immune system, helping you to feel your best and stay healthy. His supplement contains a unique herbal formula called Adaptogen. Adaptogen has been shown to support optimal immune function. With regular use, you can expect to see an improvement in your overall health and well-being and shake off the post-pandemic blues. So why wait? Start supporting your immune system today and take control of your health. Try the JVJ DNA Ancient Immunizone with Adaptogen and see the difference for yourself. And don't forget, you can use promo code FIT24 and save yourself 10%. That's FIT24 for 10% off any order at the JVJDNA.com web store.